Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Someone who hasn't won a Nobel Prize for Literature but may very well do so at some point of time is Jessica Grimble. Jessica is based in Horsham. Good morning to you, Jess.
Good morning. What an introduction.
You happy with that?
The pressure.
So Neil here, Rob, the other voice you will no doubt hear. Thanks for joining us on Regional Roundup here on the Two Blokes Chatting radio show. We just go around and we talk to people what live in nice places in Victoria and over the border sometimes. Tell us a bit about Horsham and what's going on up there.
Well, it's a beautiful morning in Horsham coming to you today, which is wonderful. Horsham's a wonderful town. It's my hometown. I haven't always lived here, but we're located about halfway between Adelaide and Melbourne. It's very much an agricultural community, but as of last night with our annual Kannamaroo Festival, it's all happening here in Horsham. Christmas.
Your annual what?
Again, Kannamaroo Festival. It used to be a 3-day festival, and it's then compressed to a day or so, and then now it's grown again, and essentially there's rides for the kids and there's market stalls, and there used to be some skiing and things like that, so it's quite a staple of the Horsham community leading into Christmas.
Now, I've been to Horsham a few times, and I'm assuming that skiing you're talking about on water and not on snow?
Correct.
It's a bit flat, that's what I meant, you know.
Very flat here, yes.
And you don't mind grain, I reckon. There's a bit of that growing around the town.
Yeah, fair bit of grain. We feed a lot of people here in Horsham, in the Wimmera, I should say.
Yeah.
The wheat belt here.
Yeah, so Horsham obviously being the capital of the Wimmera, and we'll have a few towns ring up complaining about me saying that, I suspect. But obviously, if we wind the clock back 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been, I suspect, considered by many as a sleepy town halfway between Melbourne and Adelaide. You and I actually met in Horsham about this time last year, and it was a bit flat. Not the conversation; it was one of the highlights of the year. But just the fact the town was a bit flat. Corona had a whack on it. Some of the town, some shops closed and stuff. How are things looking 12 months on in terms of, the town being up and about?
Yeah, look, it's been a tough time. I mean, it's been a tough time everywhere. One of the, I suppose, positive things that have happened through COVID is that we've had quite a lot of innovation and modernisation that's escalated through businesses. So things like being able to shop online with retail businesses, or ordering online with takeaway is something that had to change quite quickly because businesses had to adapt their offerings to be able to cater for people. So that's been a really positive thing. And I can't remember what day of the week it was that we met, Neil, but certainly Fridays on Horsham regardless are a pretty happening place because people do come from the outlying areas to come and do their shopping and things like that. Look, people are really just excited, anxious, yes, but also excited to be able to come back together, be out and about. It's been a long time, and, in a region like Horsham, where you've got a lot of farming communities, farmers are working pretty isolated a lot of the time anyway, so they're probably pretty good at that. But it's that coming together and the missing out of footy and, just the general community gatherings that people have really been hanging out for, as they have everywhere. We're no different and special to anyone else, but it's really nice to see, as the example last night, we've got this very exciting new installation in Horsham, which is a lit-up Christmas tree, and there was a section of Horsham that I haven't seen that many people around on jumping castles and looking at the tree and having food trucks and eating from food trucks and things like that. I haven't seen that volume of people around for quite some time, so it was actually really nice. And
confirmation for Rob, because he said, I'm not sure they've got electricity up there. No, he didn't say that. No, because he actually drives through there a bit, so you've got to look out for a very, very dirty Commodore going through there at some stage. He reckons it's on a dirt road, but it's actually the Hamilton Highway, so I don't know what he's talking about. But in terms of your role, and we don't need to go into detail of what that is, because you're not here to represent them so much, but let's say you work in the world of community leadership and development for the region, you'd have a bit of visibility around some of the smaller places. I'm going to show off and say places like Natimuck. and even
Been
more
to Natty Muck.
even more solidly populated areas like Nil. Are you seeing similar things there? I drove up to Mildura the other day and go through towns like Birchip and seeing people sitting out the front of the pub having a cold drink on a warm afternoon. Are you starting to see that happening in some of the smaller places as well?
Yeah, we are. Look, speaking of Mill, it's a bit unfortunate at the moment. They are experiencing quite a significant COVID outbreak, and communities like Mill and even closer to the border at Caniva have really had a lot of challenges because until this point, really, there haven't been COVID cases there, but the border closures have really significantly impacted those communities who essentially operate like many border communities do. Like the line on the map doesn't exist. So that's been really quite challenging. But again, people are so excited to get out and about. We had most of a football season this year. We didn't actually get grand finals in, but even those, I don't like to use this word, but normal things that are happening in communities were such a joy to so many people.
Just on that, just the normal things, Neil mentioned before, you are probably not in dispute as the capital of the Wimmera, so therefore the hub, a lot of the smaller towns do need to come to Horsham for services, whether they be agricultural or just normal day-to-day services. So as far as the COVID goes and lockdowns and closure of business, I would imagine a lot of the town would have had to have kept going because it was A, agricultural and then B, normal services, say very much required still to keep the workforce rolling?
Absolutely. When you're talking about agricultural services, they are essential services, vital services, so that continued all the way through. And because we're in a regional area as opposed to our metropolitan friends, we did have a little bit more freedom, but we certainly have still endured some challenging times over the last 18 months or so. And even though we've had a little bit more freedom out this way, the reality is we can't go to Melbourne, we can't cross the border. So there are still significant limitations put on us. But absolutely, in terms of businesses, there have been many businesses that have still operated. And again, like I said before, sometimes in alternate ways, but there are very essential services that are in this region, because when you're dealing with animals or you're dealing with crops and things like that, they can't wait to be shorn or harvested and things like that. The work still needs to continue. It's vital.
Because I guess with the brick wall being built just the other side of Caniva that says you can't come past here, that would take out a lot of passing traffic. I assume that there'd be a lot of people who are saying, I'm going to drive to Adelaide, I'll stop at Horsham for lunch because it's 3 hours up the road. I would have thought that would be the stuff that would have bitten the most in terms of business in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, look, I couldn't say what was the most impactful, but certainly, if you have a Adelaide Crows are playing in Melbourne, for example, you have a lot of people travelling through on the weekends, and yeah, it's a very big drive from Adelaide to Melbourne, but a lot of people do it, and they stop in Horsham. And so central places like May Park, which is a park and a playground in the middle of town, that's absolutely thriving, particularly leading into a weekend and over a weekend and things like that. So definitely that has an impact. I know certainly our border towns have been very impacted by that, because being smaller places, like you say, they're not that feeder area for the smaller outlying towns for business. So it is a big impact on them to not have people travelling through.
We've established that adults probably functioned reasonably normally, but what about children? Did you have school closures, and if so, how did that affect the run of the town?
We've had, no more school closures, I suppose, than other areas. And working from home, again, like other areas, has been a significant challenge, and particularly through the organisation I work for, we did a study with various partners around the impact on working and learning from home on women, because they were obviously taking on, and unfortunately or realistically, were taking on more duties because they're running a house, they're supporting children, learning, and they're also trying to work at the same time. So that has been a really big challenge for people. And we've noticed that, kids are just really, there's a lot of initiatives coming from adults that are reconnecting children. But I only had a conversation with a colleague yesterday that perhaps children, anecdotally, are more connected than they were before, because, they can jump online and they can play their games together and jump on Zooms and things like that. So they are constantly still talking, but it doesn't replace that interpersonal connection. And there have been some choices by adults and children where they haven't returned to various hobbies and things like that, because they realise perhaps that pre-COVID, bouncing around from basketball training to a dance class and then off to something else was probably a little bit too much to take on. So people really have scaled back those choices. But when we are able to get together, it is really quite special, especially for the young people, because you don't want them to miss out on that connectivity, and there's a whole lot of rites of passage that happen when you're a young person as well, that they are missing out on or recreating in a way.
Jess, take us through a normal day in your life.
A normal day in my life is I'm woken up by my 2 cats who stand over me and like to tell me that they're very hungry, so that's always a nice way to start the day. I am working, as Neil said, in community leadership development, and I'm wearing a couple of different hats at the moment. Really enjoying that. At this time of the year, I've graduated a cohort of people who have done a year-long program and recruiting for the next year. So that's quite a busy time, but very, very rewarding to be able to play a role in supporting people's personal and professional development. I'm studying as well, so that's an interesting juggle. I'm studying HR psychology online part-time, so that just throws that into the mix. Next week I've got my last tap dancing class. So that's
goodness gracious.
I had 17 adult tappers for term 4, and many of them had never danced before or had only done a year or so. So that's been absolutely fabulous and taught me a whole lot of range of other skills in terms of how to teach people to dance when they've never danced before, and I'm really loving that. And because my partner Michael is also listening right now, I do make some time for him as well.
Hey, I'm intrigued. Tap dancing, where the hell did that start?
I was tap dancing from when I was 4.
You must be tired.
Yeah. I love my tap dancing. So I'm dancing at a school in Horsham that the teacher that I had, and then she later had a second teacher that led the school. We're all now teaching together, which is absolutely awesome. There's 4 of us. We offer tap dancing, jazz and lyrical, and my sort of expertise, I suppose, if you can call it that, lies with tap dancing. And it can be absolutely very traditional. The Gene Kellys and the Fred Astaire sort of movies come to mind when you talk about tap dancing. But this year I suppose after, not having a concert last year and coming back this year, I really tried to push the envelope a little bit. So I've recently choreographed a dance, slow burning in a room. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten the name. Anyway, and I had a concert piece to do. So that is not a song that you would actually put to a tap dancing routine, but it's more of a lyrical tap and really quite modernising and creating a complementary beat to what it is that the music is offering. So I like to challenge myself, and I also like to think that the students that I have who are coming into adulthood, they're the senior of the school. Let's challenge them with different beats and different music, and let's also give them something that they really love to dance to, because if they enjoy it, then they're going to perform better, and they're going to enjoy their classes and all of those sorts of things. So I absolutely love it.
Well, Jess, we better get going because we're coming up to 11 o'clock and Rob's got to go next door and run the next program. Rob actually tried tap dancing, but he kept falling in the sink. Thanks for joining us today, Jessica Grimble from Horsham, and I look forward to chatting to you soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.